I've been thinking about this idea of gravity lately. Not, the physics thing keeping us on the ground,
Right.
but the gravity of a conversation. You know that feeling when the air in a room just gets heavy.
Oh, yeah. It's a very specific kind of pressure.
Yeah. And a single sentence drops, and you can almost physically feel the shift.
It's the realization that what's being said right now isn't just noise. It's structural. It's actually changing the landscape.
Exactly. We tend to think power is loud. The person yelling into the microphone, the breaking news alert with the big red banner.
Mm.
But today's deep dive, it suggests something
Mm.
completely different. It suggests that the real power, the kind that actually steers things, is often quiet
Invisible.
and just terrifyingly heavy.
It's the difference between volume and mass, really. And to explore that, we're looking at a really unique pairing of sources today. We have the astrological profile for right now, January 22, 2026, which sets a very specific kind of psychological stage. And then we have a narrative piece, StoryScope, which is almost like a simulation of that exact psychology, but, in a high-stakes, post-collapse world.
The theme holding them together is the gravity of words. And I have to say, the deeper I got into this StoryScope thing, the more I started side-eyeing my own emails.
Ah, I believe it.
It makes you paranoid, but in a productive way.
Productive paranoia is actually the perfect way to describe the energy we're dealing with here.
So let's set the scene. We'll start with the sky. January 22, 2026.
Mhm.
The source points to a specific alignment. Mercury conjunct Pluto.
Okay.
Now, for anyone who doesn't have a star chart handy, Mercury is the messenger, right? It's mind, data, communication.
Correct. Mercury is swift. It's logic. It's facts, the way we process things, A to B to C. But today, it is crashing directly into Pluto. And Pluto's the lord of the underworld.
Which sounds intense.
It is.
Yeah.
Pluto is all about power, secrets, deep transformation, the stuff that's buried. So when you get a conjunction where they're in the same space,
Right.
you have the conscious, logical mind being forced to dive into these dark subconscious undercurrents.
So it's not enough to just know what someone said?
No, this energy makes you obsess over why they said it.
The source uses the word sleuth to describe the mind right now. It says we're motivated to dig for truth. But here's my question. We're always told to trust logic, right?
Look at the facts.
But this profile says that right now, reasoning is more instinctive than logical. That feels risky. If I'm in some high-stakes meeting and I just go with my gut, doesn't that usually end badly?
That is the danger zone for sure. And the source is careful to distinguish between, say, an emotional reaction and instinctive pattern recognition.
Okay, what's the difference?
Logic is great when you have all the variables, A plus B equals C. But Pluto deals with secrets. It deals with the variables that are hidden from you.
So logic fails because the equation is incomplete.
Exactly. Your logic might say, this person is smiling, they're offering me a great deal, therefore it's good. But your Pluto instinct is picking up on the microtremors,
Yeah.
the heavy gravity of what isn't being said.
Ah, I see.
That's the instinct it's talking about. It's your brain recognizing a pattern of manipulation before your conscious mind can even explain why.
That makes sense. It's like the detective who walks into a room and just knows something's wrong because a vase has moved 2 inches.
Precisely. But the source also drops a pretty heavy warning here. It talks about verbal power struggles.
Right. It says words carry gravity. And because everyone is operating with this kind of X-ray vision, a careless word can do way more damage than usual. The phrase that really jumped out at me was, conversations can transform relationships or torch them.
Torture them. Yeah, subtle.
Cool.
It's about the stakes. And the advice it gives is to notice who controls narratives and to choose impact over reaction. And that distinction, impact versus reaction, that's really the key to the second source we're looking at.
Okay, let's go there. Because this story, The Archive and the Anomaly, it takes these abstract astrological ideas and puts them in a really concrete, really weird setting. We meet this character, Mara Ilex. She works in the archive in a post-collapse world.
And this is not your local library. The world building here is fascinating because it's built on a philosophy that totally contradicts how we live today. The first rule of the archive is conversations matter more than evidence.
Yes, I circled that like 3 times. Conversations matter more than evidence. In our world, data is king. We want receipts, screenshots, the raw numbers.
Of course.
How can this super advanced archive claim a conversation is more reliable than hard data?
It's a provocative idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
The source explains that in their future, they realize that data feels solid, but data could be shaped. Meaning, if you have enough processing power, you can make data tell any lie you want. Data is static. It just sits there waiting for a frame.
So they see data as just paint, something you can use to paint any picture you want.
Precisely. But a live conversation, a dynamic exchange between two people, that has tremors. The archive believes truth doesn't hide in the facts. It hides in the friction.
In the pauses, the deflections.
Exactly. The sudden changes in tone. You can fake a spreadsheet, but it is incredibly hard to fake the gravity as a real interaction over time.
Which brings us to the tool Mara uses, the resonance table. I was trying to picture this thing. It's not a lie detector, right?
No, and that's what's so brilliant about it. A lie detector just measures stress. The resonance table measures weight.
Weight.
Yeah. The source describes her sitting in this chamber, and the language of the entire city is streaming above her like weather patterns. She's not reading transcripts. She's watching for patterns of persuasion.
It's so she can see whose silence caused others to talk harder.
Which is such a powerful way to visualize influence, isn't it? If you're in a meeting and you just stay silent and everyone else rushes to fill that void,
You're the one with the gravity.
you're the planet. They're just the moons orbiting you.
So Mara is using this weather map of language to investigate a narrative anomaly. And this is where the story gets really interesting. She's not solving a murder. She's solving a mood.
She's investigating paralysis. Yeah. The source describes a city where nothing is wrong, but nothing is happening. No riots, no protests.
Right. Just a strange distortion in public reasoning. Research is stalled. Policy is frozen.
It says brilliant minds are circling in loops.
The whole society has brain fog.
And this ties right back to Mercury-Pluto. The detective mind realizes this confusion isn't random, it's artificial. The source says, notice who benefits from confusion. Mara realizes someone is feeding this paralysis into the system.
So she goes hunting, she filters out all the noise, the pundits, the politicians, and she finds the culprit. And it's not a person, it's a phrase.
This is my favorite part. It's so terrifyingly real.
It is. The phrase is, unverified complexity requires patience.
Just let that sink in.
Unverified complexity requires patience. If I heard that in a meeting, I would probably nod. I'd think, oh yes, that sounds very prudent. We shouldn't rush.
And that's exactly how the trap works. It weaponizes your own intelligence against you.
How so?
Well, look at the words, unverified. That appeals to your desire for truth. Complexity. That appeals to your ego. You're smart, you know things are complex.
And requires patience.
Right. That appeals to your sense of responsibility. It actually frames doing nothing as a virtue.
Wow. So it's a thought-terminating cliche, but for smart people, it's not. It is what it is. It's the data is too complex to act on yet.
Exactly. The source calls it a persuasive restraint, a narrative damper. And Mara tracks this phrase back in time. It started with some minor analysts, but then it jumped to think tanks, to committee hearings.
And the pattern was always the same. It always appeared at the moment of decision.
Yes. Just when momentum was building to actually solve something, someone would drop that phrase.
And all the energy just drains out of the room.
It creates a permission structure for doing nothing. And because it sounds so reasonable, if you argue against it, you look reckless. You look like the one who doesn't care about complexity.
It's a linguistic straitjacket. So Mara asks the Pluto question. Who's doing this?
Yeah.
Who benefits? And the answer, it wasn't the evil dictator.
No. The resonance table points to the facilitators, the editors, the moderators of discourse.
The middleman.
The people who frame the debate before it begins. The source says that power hides in plain sight. We're all looking at the person on the stage, but the real control is with the person who wrote the agenda.
So Mara sees the whole mechanism. She knows how the city is being frozen. Now she has to break it. And this leads to the climax, which is, I think it's a masterclass in how to have a difficult conversation.
Right.
She calls Jonah Pell.
Her former partner.
And it is not a friendly call. The text says the last conversation had ended badly. There's baggage.
Oh, yeah. This is that Mercury-Pluto danger zone. The risk of torching the relationship.
And think about the temptation she must have felt. She knows she's right. The most human thing to do would be to call him up and just scream, I told you so.
Look at this conspiracy I uncovered. I'm so smart.
Yes, I would want to do that.
Me too. But that's ego. And the astrology source explicitly said, speak with precision, not ego.
Because if she comes in hot, Jonah, who works in civic oversight, he'll just get defensive. He'll hang up. The gravity of her anger would just push him away.
So she does something really unnerving. She calls him and just says, I need you to listen and not react.
Jonah even says, that's a dangerous way to start a call.
And she says, it's a precise one. She's stripping away all the emotion. She's not trying to persuade him with charm. She's trying to show him the sheer weight of the situation.
She describes the threat not as a conspiracy, but as a damper. She uses technical language he'll understand.
And when he accuses her of sounding crazy, which she doesn't argue back.
This is the pivot, the key moment. She sends him the convergence map. She sends the data from the resonance table. She lets the pattern speak for itself. She chooses impact over reaction. She could have reacted to his insult, but she stayed focused on the impact of the information.
And because she took her ego out of it, because she didn't try to force him, she created a vacuum, a space for him to actually look at the truth. The story says, deep conversations always required space.
And that silence on the line, that's the sound of a paradigm shifting. Jonas sees the map, sees that phrase lighting up the board like a virus, and he finally gets it. He says, this compromises everything. Oversight, trust, the whole conversational infrastructure.
He realizes the very tools they used to think have been sabotaged, and he asks her, does this burn us down?
And Mara says, or it transforms us, depending on how we speak next.
And that is the absolute essence of the Pluto archetype, death and rebirth. The old way of talking has to die. But what comes next depends on that very next move.
The resolution isn't some big action scene, it's so much quieter. Jonah asks who else knows. Mara says, no one, yet. And then she just hangs up.
And the system registers a shift. One node in the lattice dimmed, another brightened.
The conversation changed direction.
By exposing the damper for what it was, they let the flow of ideas start again.
Which brings us to the final lesson from the story, and I think that's the big takeaway for all of us today. The story says, truth did not need volume. It needed placement.
It needed placement. That is such a vital concept for the age we live in. We are obsessed with volume. We think if we just tweet more, yell louder, we'll win.
Right.
But this suggests that strategic precision, placing the right word, in the right ear at exactly the right time, is infinitely more powerful.
It's a difference between a sledgehammer and an acupuncture needle.
Perfect analogy. One makes a mess, the other hits the one nerve that changes the whole system.
And that goes right back to the astrology, Mercury-Pluto. That's the strategic thinking the source promised, being a sleuth, not just for facts, but for leverage points.
So if you're looking at your own life, your job, your relationships, how do you apply this? Step one is probably looking for those narrative dampers.
Absolutely. Listen for those phrases that sound smart, but actually just stop thinking.
Let's take this offline.
We don't want to boil the ocean.
Or unverified complexity requires patience. When you hear those, your inner detective should wake up. You have to ask, is this real caution or is this control?
And step two is checking your own ego at the door.
Which is the hardest part. When you find the truth, your first instinct is to use it like a weapon to prove you're right. But if you want to actually change the outcome,
if you want impact,
you have to deliver that truth with enough space for the other person to accept it. You have to lower the gravity in the room so they don't feel crushed.
It's funny, we started this whole thing talking about how heavy words are, but the solution seems to be about handling them with a really light touch.
Light, but dense, like a diamond.
I love that. Truth needs placement. And I'm going to be thinking about that all week.
It's definitely going to change how I write my next difficult email.
Before we wrap up, I just want to leave everyone with the final line from the source material. It captures this whole tension between creation and destruction so perfectly.
It's a haunting line.
A truth, spoken with care, has the dual potential to either save a civilization or set it on fire.
The choice, as always, is in the delivery.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Keep your eyes on the stars and watch your words. We'll see you next time.